The Blade Itself. This is by Joe Abercrombie. It is the first installation of his First Law trilogy, and it is a fantastic book with almost no plot. What happens? Really not much, okay? You get to learn the characters. That's what happens in First Law. And you're thinking, okay, nothing happens. Why the hell would I read it? And it's because those characters are just so damn well realized. All right, these are some of the best written characters I've ever read in fantasy, and I've read quite a bit of fantasy. It is, touted as one of the greats. Joe Abercrombie is incredibly popular now. He's done really well, and he's a really great writer. So you've got three main characters in this first book, The Blade Itself. You got Logan Ninefingers, Sandan Glokta, and Jezal Dan Luther. Logan Ninefingers is your classic berserker. He's just a barbarian from the north who he just whoops ass. And he's very practical. He has a lot of very funny one-liners. Excellent character. Jezal Dan Luther is kind of a fencing up-and-comer and officer in the army, and he's kind of a prick. All right, he's entitled and he's a little shithead, and you're gonna hate him for probably most of this first book, and you're gonna want to read his chapters mostly just to see how he could fuck up his life, because you're gonna want him to fail and you're gonna hate him in this first book. I did. Everyone I've talked to did. He's a little piece of shit, but he's a very well realized piece of shit. Okay, he's a very real character, and you're gonna enjoy that. Now, Sandan Glokta is the pinnacle of a character in fantasy. He is so well realized, it's actually absurd, because he's my favorite character possibly ever. Okay, and First Law is definitely not my favorite book series. All right, I've read so much fantasy, I definitely could not pick First Law as the best series. But Sandan Glokta stands so far above every other character in his book series that he ranks among the best characters ever written in basically all of fiction for me. Okay, he's definitely one of the best ever written. That can be definitely disputed because I pretty much read mostly fantasy and sci-fi. I have read a lot of the classics, but it's been a while for a lot of those. So I definitely think he's at least one of the best characters in fantasy, probably top 5, and probably pretty close towards other fiction novels. So Sandan Glokta is a once amazing, greatest swords fighter of all time, knight, and he gets crippled, and now he's a torturer, and he's a miserable piece of shit who makes everybody's lives miserable around him. And he's got really great lines. His inner monologue is absolutely hilarious. And it's funny because most of the situations you'll find this character in are awful. Okay, and they're really depressing, but for some reason the book is never actually depressing. That's one of the great things about Abercrombie, is while he's dealing with dark subject matter, you always have a light and airy tone to the novel, which is fun to read. Okay, you're gonna laugh a lot, and probably the most in Sandan Glokta's, even though he's got some of the worst subject matter. So that is one of the great things about First Law. And the whole reason you're reading this book, The Blade Itself, is to watch those characters interact with the world around them, okay? Because not much happens plot-wise. The events are kind of boring in themselves, but how the characters act is fantastic. What they say to each other, what they're thinking in their heads, absolute perfection. Okay, you're gonna absolutely love it if you love character-driven stories. This is absolutely 100% character-driven. If you want super huge events and you want those huge, massive scale battles and all kinds of things going on, right now this first book isn't going to be for you, and you might find it hard to read through. But if you do love characters, you're going to love this book. Don't worry too much about grim dark. While there is dark subject matter, it's really not that dark of a book. Okay, it's way less dark than A Song of Ice and Fire. The subject matter, while there are some similarities, it is presented in a way that is much less awful. Okay, Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, that's going to turn your stomach more than make you laugh. Joe Abercrombie makes you laugh, and not for everything, but for enough of it to be where I would consider not very dark. Okay, I would actually compare it more to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the TV show, because you have terrible people in terrible situations, but for some reason it's hilarious, and I think that's just because of the fantastic writing and your connection to the characters. And that is The Blade itself, and I hope you enjoy that. If you want to do a written review, I do have a small written review on my website. I will link to it in the comments. Thank you for watching.